Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us today. My name is Sam Goodman. I run our sales team on our growth and mid-market channel that covers food and beverage, which means that we work with partners who are newer to Snap, who are challenger brands, who are on the up and up, which is how I have the honor of knowing Inga here. We've been developing a really strong relationship with Bean over the last few months. And I'm really excited to be talking with you today and sharing a little bit about our journey together and your journey. So I think with that, I will hand it over to you just to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up with Bean.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. And hi, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here today doing Fireside Chat with Sam. When the team came to me, I was really excited to be able to come up and share my thoughts. So appreciate you all being here. Appreciate being on the stage. So my career started like 12 years ago, and I've always worked in social. So before social was a career path, I was working in social, and my first role was at Coach, which is now Tapestry. Believe it or not, they handed the intern the Instagram and said, go run it, which we would never do today. So I pitched for a full-time role there and then moved on up through that experience to working at Diane von Furstenberg in high fashion, vastly different than more of the prestige area of Coach. So runways, New York Fashion Weeks, all of those things. And shifted into the past 6.5 years working at the Estee Lauder companies, which I actually had the pleasure of seeing one of my former colleagues sitting in the audience today. And while at Estee, I was brought on to really set up the structure for social with regards to how do we measure success on social, what are KPIs that we're looking at, and then start looking at content creation in different ways, partnerships with influencers, and so on and so forth. I ended up leaving after the 6.5 years. That I was there, I was leading their media partnerships with teams like Snap, and took on this amazing opportunity at Suntory, which is an enterprise role across the entire organization, all 50-some of our brands, to set the company up for success in terms of social media and innovation. And it was a really exciting challenge to be tasked with, because I think it was Kristen who was speaking earlier about where she is on her journey. I feel like I'm at the beginning of where her journey was. So it came in and there wasn't a team, really. There was like 2 people, and I had to really get things going from the ground up, which has been a huge part of my focus over the past couple months. I'm about to hit 1 year. So that's a bit about me. Yeah.
Amazing, thank you. I think one thing you touched on that's kind of maybe interesting, or I don't know if it's still the case, but social tends to be like a buzzword for innovation for a lot of legacy brands. So just curious how innovation sort of lives within your world these days. Do you feel like that perception has changed for social as obviously social media has proliferated? Or do you still feel like you end up being this like go-to person, like, oh, we have to do something innovative, like what should we do with social media?
That's a great question. I think when I first started in the industry, it was a little bit like, okay, social's this thing over here that we think we have to do, we're not really sure. Social is definitely inherent to, innovation rather is inherent to social roles, so that definitely is something that even in my roles today, people do come to us and say, what can we do differently? And how can we blend that into our overall marketing strategy? And I'm really a proponent of looking at paid, owned, and earned social and innovation working together all within your marketing strategies. It shouldn't be operating on the side. It should be really integrated within your marketing plans.
Okay, so you've worked at Coach, founded in the 40s, DVF 70s, Estee also in the 40s, and now you're at a brand that's over 150 years old probably. We heard a little bit about this from Kristen, who also works under big legacy brands. How do you think about infusing innovation into such an iconic, historic set of brands? Do you have any sort of frameworks or anything that you think about that helps you organize how you bring activations to life or how you bring innovation to life with the company?
Yeah, I do. So first off, I think one of the most important things is to always ask what if. So I think for me, when I'm thinking about innovation is just really bringing 2 things that exist together in a way that hasn't been done before. And so when you're looking at a challenge as a business, you're thinking about how do we improve our consumer experience, highlight personalization, whatever it might be, and how do we get there? The answers are in front of you. Innovation is all around us. It's really just looking at what are the things that might exist that we just haven't thought to combine yet, and then ask what if we did this, and then continue iterating on that and asking what if, and what if, to get to that blue sky area. And I really think that that unlocks just a more exciting way of thinking and finding solutions to problems. unlocks that piece in your mind that's more creative. And then with regards to heritage brands specifically, I would say that looking at innovation through the lens of your roots and your anchors as a brand is really important, because you have, as a heritage brand, which I've had the privilege of working at so many of them over the past decade plus, is so amazing. You have to stay true to what your roots are, those things that are core to your brand, the brand's being itself. And when you innovate and are relating that innovation to that core brand's roots, that's where the innovation has legs, has scale, and you can iterate and move upon it. If you just look at the anchors, which is maybe someone's idea from like 10 years ago, like we're gonna layer this into our brand DNA, that's where it's not as authentic, it's not gonna have the legs, it's not gonna be able to move and make as much impact.
How do you think about measuring success for those? And especially when it comes to cultivating some of those brand roots, where do those come from? What do you use to draw for developing those insights?
Yeah, so measuring success can be done in many ways depending on the innovation, of course. Like if we're thinking about LTOs, which was spoken about earlier, more of the actual sellout of that product, the buzz that we're looking at social listening, how much traction are we getting on that? If you're looking at something like what we're doing with Snap and what I've done with Snap and innovation, looking at brand lift perceptions, how we're doing in terms of linger time or engagement time, are people then driven back, or making that more salient connection? And the second part of your question was?
Where do you draw those insights from? How do you discern between a brand truth or a brand root?
The roots. Yeah, so I would say in every place that I've been, which all the heritage brands have been, is do your research about that brand and about the founder and about the core things that are within the brand and founder and what they've been talking about. Whether it's a living founder like Diane von Gerstenberg, I had the pleasure of working with her directly, so I actually got to hear what her actual thoughts were on the brand and what the brand DNA and roots were, versus things that she was like, okay, this is fun to experiment with, but not really who we are. That's a big part of it, I would say. Do your research.
I like this idea of the what if question too. You know, anybody who's taken an improv class might recognize this, but you do an exercise called yes and, where you have to go around in a circle and you can never end a sentence. You basically just have to continue adding on to it. We do it a lot. I started my career here at Snap and created strategy, and so we did a lot of augmented reality ideation. And the big thing there was to try to bring innovation to many brands who had never worked in that format before. And we would sit in our brainstorms and we would think, okay, yeah, we can do that, but we have this amazing technology. What else can we do with it? And I think that that's been a huge win for anybody who's been thinking about how they start to tell their story in new environments. So I appreciate that. And I think in general, just the framework that I took away from that was this idea of starting with questions, understanding the brand roots, building incrementally, right? You can't boil the ocean, and then ensuring you've got a really good measurement plan in place depending on the initiative itself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Good takeaway for those in the audience who do innovation, maybe. I would imagine with a legacy brand like that, maybe with any of the brands you've worked on, but Beam in particular, because of the true age and maybe the historic consumer base for premium alcohols, there's a lot of balance that has to go on between maintaining your core customer, recruiting new consumers. We heard a little bit about it earlier this morning from Val, we heard a little bit about it from Kristen. How do you think about that balance in the scope of innovation, and especially in social, which is such a new medium and maybe meant to be geared towards a newer consumer for you?
Yeah, you know, in all of my roles, there's always the question of, and I think this is just regardless of where you work in marketing, right? Like, how do we attract new consumers without isolating existing consumers? And especially on heritage brands like Jim Beam, we know a core piece of our base are consumers that are maybe in a boomer generation or later generation. How we retain those consumers and then also attract the new consumers into the brands. And I think a lot of that goes into the contextual situation that you're in, what channels you're using in medium and the message. And then it goes back again to the core values of the brand and the roots, right? So if you're thinking about, I think a good example I'm going to draw on DBF this time again, is she has this motto that is at root to her around be the woman you want to be. That is a brand truth, it's part of her DNA, and it is a root to who she is. Whether you are a 70-year-old woman looking to buy a wrap dress because that's what you bought when you were 20, or you are a new consumer coming in, and I know her, I think granddaughter is going to be kind of involved in the business more, that truth of be who you want to be, unabashedly be who you want to be, own it, and don't let other people determine your path. Whether you're in one generation or another, existing or new, that is a brand truth that can attract the new and the existing consumers. So no one's jarred from that. No one's thrown off by it. Like, oh, I didn't think this brand was about that.
You've talked a little bit about founders as being an important role of legacy brands. How do you tell that story if the founder isn't here anymore? You know, you think about being in the history there, Suntory distillery in the history in Japan. How have you just started to think about applying that same thinking if you have an icon, but maybe you don't have them here to give their voice anymore to brands like the alcohol business?
Yeah, I had that challenge when I was at Coach as well. So with Beam, what's really interesting is a lot of the families are still incredibly involved. So we've got generational families involved with the business. So we've got Rob Samuels from the Naples Mark team. He's leading that up, and he's generational and so on. And I think that one, if you have that access, that's amazing, right? So you've got generational there. But if you don't have that access, which sometimes is the case, and I think that can be said for a brand like Courvoisier, where we don't have the actual founder right there with us, or some relational, because it's kind of passed over from different places. I think it's really sitting and working with the teams to, again, look at the historical record of what was this brand founded on and upon, what are the key inflection points of the brand that have happened, and why. So for Courvoisier, it was the cognac that was actually used at the Eiffel Tower. When the Eiffel Tower was built, they cheers with Courvoisier. And so thinking about that from a cultural relevancy standpoint of, okay, these are the types of moments that this brand has been involved in the past. How do we also bring that into the consumer's consciousness now, and maybe tie that history to an innovation, right? So it could be something that's an augmented reality having to do with going through the time and history of when that happened, those different moments in time, to really tie that brand and the DNA roots together.
I know this is a little bit of a curveball question, but I guess on the flip side, because I know we talk about this, a big thing when you have founders involved still, or when you have the family involved still, is also making the case to them that maybe their brand has shifted over time, or they need to think about connecting with the consumers. Have you faced any issues internally, either at Beam or other companies, where you then had to maybe even tell PBF, like, there's a new perception of your brand out there, how can we start to evolve to meet that message, and what was it like having to create that story internally?
Yeah, I've had that challenge happen before. I won't share which, but I think that it's really about, and I think we're going to talk later around like getting people on about innovation generally, but it's around bringing any of those founders along for the ride, right? Like, their brands are their being, and they believe in it so much. So you can't force something on anybody. You're being like, Sam, you're this, I'm going to make you do this now, right? So it's really about having that partnership and communication and helping them to see that, again, your root is here, what we're trying to do is this. How does this tie back and shift? And make them kind of convince them, and then bring them on that journey with you, so that they don't feel like they're just riding the coattails of whoever the new marketing person or social team person is, So
we've got to sell it internally too.
Yeah.
Coming back to where this was originally going, which is about the idea of recruitment of new consumers, you think about Gen Z, how they're coming of age, rapidly under the next LDA consumer out there. They've got this much stronger focus, at least on a lot of the research that Snap has done, on social responsibility. They actually want their brands to truly act more human and believe in the same initiatives they do, whether it's social justice, environmental change, climate change. How do you bring that in? Is that a part of how you think about talking to them when you think about Beam brands? Even, we talked a little bit about the trend of no alcohol, low alcohol, this change and shift in consumer behavior. How does that look for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Gen Z and millennials alike, and a lot, I think, of the news, ever since even COVID, I feel like it's been this heightened thing for everyone about who's doing well for the world, who's doing good for the planet, who's doing good for people, because we're all at the end people, and we're all isolated for so long. So it's kind of coming to this inflection point of table stakes that especially Gen Z expects. What are you doing? And at Beam Suntory, we actually have an amazing program that's called Proof Positive. So clever. And it's made up of 3 different parts. And the first part is Nature Positive. And Nature Positive is all around the sustainability efforts and the planet piece that we do. And that's obviously on the top of a lot of people's minds, whether you're Gen Z or not. What's the future look like for my kids? What is happening to the planet? Things are burning, we're getting orange haze in New York a few months ago. So nature positive is tied to our core values at Beam Suntory and Suntory around water, and how water is really the lifeblood of what our business is about. So how do we protect water sources? How do we ensure clean water is available? And then that ties to forestry as well. Forestry and how the environment around that water is also really important. So we use casks, white American oak casks that are created out of wood. Let's replant those trees. Let's reuse those casks across the different areas of the business. And I think storytelling around like the journey of the cask is actually something really interesting, and that we're starting to talk about more with some of our brands like Maker's Mark. The second piece of our responsibility is actually internal, and that's people positive, and that's all about how do we create inclusive environment within our own organization, and how do we talk about some of these challenges more openly, and accept that everyone's coming from different places and different phases of life. That's something I really love about the company for sure. It's a very international, very different people from all over the place. And then the third that is really about that point that you were speaking to around responsible drinking or the low no alc is consumer positive. And we're committed along with many of our other competitors actually in having very stringent guidelines on who do we communicate and how, and ensuring that all of our messaging around our alcoholic products are to those who are of age or older. And then also speaking to what does responsible mean? And what does responsible drinking truly mean without, of course, alienating the core to our business? And that can be inclusive drinking, right? That's drinking one drink that's an alcoholic beverage, followed by a non-alc, followed by water. How do we rotate that in? How do we educate consumers around creating more low alcohol cocktails with their favorite products? And so that's something that I'm really passionate about myself as well. And I think we do also have some amazing products that are low or no alc that some of them are more available in Asia right now, but you'll see them coming over to the US soon.
It's a great platform to launch them on. And a huge audience might be interested in them. I think in a lot of cases, the CSR initiatives sit nicely on a website. You talk nicely about them on stage. You don't necessarily see them come to life, and even when we've talked with brands about bringing some of that story onto Snap or other platforms, they're excited about it, but it doesn't necessarily sell the product, and they don't see the correlation there. How do you guys bring these initiatives to life, and especially given that you work over social and you're starting to think about the combination between paid and owned and organic? Do you have this conversation just in organic? Maybe even if you have any examples of how you brought it to life? I think the audience would love to hear how this can really become a part of the conversation they have with consumers.
Yeah, so I can't give too much away yet because we do have some things that are going to be happening in coming months around this idea of consumer positive and responsible drinking. But I would say that in answer to your question, it's paid, owned, and earned. We have to think about it across all of those points of social, including the influencers that we choose to work with, the talent that we might choose to work with, and so on. I think we're in the beginnings of our journey at Beam to really get that out there to consumers, but when we do, when we storytell and show from that first person perspective of an employee who works at one of our distilleries, for example, and them talking about what makes their products really unique, but then also how they mix it up and ensure that they can have a really great night while being responsible. That's something that is very relatable because a lot of us, millennials and Gen Z, it's not that you don't want to drink any alcohol, it's just you want to do it and have a great time and be safe about it.
Or you have kids at home who are going to be an alarm clock regardless, and so you start to recognize that drinking just does not go well with 7 a.m. wake-ups.
Yeah, and in my case, fur baby who loves to wake me up every day at 6:30. It's incrementally getting earlier. I think she's getting...
The more you feed into it, the earlier they get up.
Okay.
Okay, so your role encompasses global, right? So let's expand this a little bit. Your remit has always been global. How does that play in to your thinking when it comes to innovation, best practices, or any general best practices or learnings from your career about how you scale innovation globally? I know a lot of times innovation tests can be market specific, but you want to think about things that are going to be impactful across the business. So how does that affect you?
Yeah, definitely. So my role has been global in all of my roles, but I will say that the collaboration and partnership within regions and markets is absolutely important. It's critical to anything you do. I look at global as a service to our markets and regions. We want to understand what their challenges are, where they're trying to go, because of course I have the global picture of the larger business across all regions, but ultimately my role is to help fuel their business and find solutions to help them achieve their goals. So there are kind of two things is that when I think about innovation and how to plan that within a business. One is market readiness. Which are the markets that are at a point where they can do some sort of innovation in partnership with global? Because it's a whole other piece of work stream in many cases. And then the second piece is that I see global as the glue of the learnings. So it's our responsibility as global to see what innovations or new projects are happening across different areas of the business. And in my case, not even just in one category, I'm across tequila, cognac, whiskey, scotch, all the things. And be that glue to bring things together and translate those learnings to a different brand or a different market. And that's where the scalability comes in. And a lot of that also has to do with your product innovation and availability too, and how you want to think about the penetration within your different markets so that you can scale that appropriately. If you have a product that's not available everywhere, then how are you going to scale that appropriately? And if you can't do that, then how do we do? Okay, let's make sure it's a turnkey. We can flip in some other thing to be able to support this brand or this market.
I like that idea. I think like you talk about sample size when you're trying to prove statistical significance in any experiment. You kind of want to figure out if the market not only is ready to take that on, but what would be a good example of what it might look like if you are then able to scale it. I know we're running out of time. I'm going to ask you one more question, and I might give it a little bit to the audience. But my last is when you are bringing innovation to a market or bringing innovation to life, and you're trying to partner with maybe let's say a Snap or other platforms, how do you evaluate those partners that you want to work with on bringing innovation to your consumers?
Yeah, so it's a couple of things. So first, I have to understand the larger challenge that's at hand and what we're trying to achieve as a team, and really understand what success is going to look like. And when I'm evaluating partners, I look for a couple things. One, I look for true partnerships. So folks who aren't just going to be like, this is our offering and we're going to walk away. Like, this is what we do. This is what we can do for you. I look for partners that actually have a true investment or some skin in the game, whether that's financially or just time-wise, to be with us and be partners. Innovation can be really hard when you're first starting to do it with teams, and having a partner that's going to be in the room with you, working with you, and available for you is really, really important. And then I look for innovation partners that have really done their research, frankly. It's not our job as a brand. In some ways, it's our job to showcase the depth of what the brand's about. But at the end of the day, if you haven't done your research about my brand and you come to me with some great idea out of left field and has nothing to do with what we're doing or our priorities, then how's that helpful to me? This could be any brand, this could be anything. So in evaluating that, those are really two important parts for me, which is also why I love working with Snap. Sorry for like a shameless plug for y'all.
We'll take it.
But every time I've worked with you guys, when I was in the beauty division, working with Gabby, it's a lot of that collaboration that's there and the proactivity of partners bringing things that are relevant to me, saying like, hey, I know this is important to you. Here's this white space opportunity that we think we could actually tap into first. Like, there's an investment there of thought leadership that we can volley off of each other to get the best result possible.
Not to gas you up a little bit, which is a term I learned from my Gen Z nephews. But it sounds like you want partners to kind of think like you do, right? We're curious about the brand, learn about the brand roots, ask the what if question, have a plan for measurement, they're really in it with you. That is doable when you have a partner or you have a brand that actually brings you into the conversation. And I think one thing that's made the sort of like blooming of this partnership with Beam now so impactful is that you brought us in right away. We can't thank you enough for always just kind of opening that door, giving us the full context, giving us the back, because that helps us understand all of those elements that you need to know. And I think makes everything just come to life a little more vividly and a lot more robust opportunities down the line.
Yeah, definitely. I've really appreciated the partnership we've had because what we're working on right now with Jim Beam is we have a great new campaign called People Are Good For You. And it's all about the beauty of being all together again because we've all not been. Not sure if anyone saw the TV series that's featuring Sweet Caroline. If you love that song, go listen to it. If you hate that song, maybe skip. But the whole concept and idea around it is, okay, how can we bring people people together in a different way using social and digital. And Snap was first of mind for me because Snap is all about the interpersonal connections you have. You have a very limited number of people on your Snap that you snap with day to day. And it's a way to not only unlock that day to day if I'm not sitting in a room with my cousin who lives in Arizona, we're snapping back and forth, but also if I'm sitting at a bar with my bestie, I can still use, and people do still use Snapchat. So it's kind of that multi-layer of like, you're here, but you're not here, but you're also physically here, but we can still interact, and that joy of bringing people together. That was something that it's always been part of Jim Beam's DNA. They have, come as friends, leave as family. That's their tagline. And so when we're thinking about people are good for you, yeah, that's our new campaign, but it ties directly to that root of what we are as a brand, and then Snap can play off of that of, hey, come as friends, leave as family, let's connect together one-to-one more deeply.
It's actually the number one reason people come to Snap is to connect with close friends and family. So I love when there's that sort of alignment just at the core, that authenticity there. I know we're about out of time. I don't know if we have time for one more question. Okay, great. We can take one question from the audience, or I have one more that I can finish off with. You guys got that much information. Amazing. Okay, so I'm going to finish with one question that's built into 10. It's just a quick lightning round, just to get us going, excited for lunch.
I'm like the thing standing between you and lunch. So
Actually, Julian's going to be the thing standing between them.
Ooh, Julian.
Bourbon or scotch?
Bourbon.
Rocks or straight up?
Up.
Which is your favorite bourbon?
Basil either. Toast.
What's your favorite cocktail bar in New York?
Right now, Jeremy's up on 86th and 2nd, but if you don't like cocktails, go to Earl's Beer and Cheese. If you like beer. Sorry. Shameless plug. I have friends where they're great.
Your approach to marketing in less than 3 words.
Keep it simple.
And finally, of course, your favorite Snap AR lens.
Sparkles.
Oh, good.
Sparkle pearls.
Thank you so much for the time today. It was great. And thank you for